Hey everybody, this is Two Old Bucks in episode 218. This is Old Buck Dell, and with me, of course, is
Well, Buck Dave,
Old
back
Buck
again.
Dave.
Good to see you,
So
buddy. Good to
good
see
to
you.
see you. Good to see you. Uh, I'm going to throw the bone over to you. Anything exciting? Anything interesting? Because I got a couple of chuckles I wanted to give you.
Well, I can. We've got some letters from afar floating around from a couple episodes we haven't touched on. Let me just get a couple of those. Uh, this was, if you recall, a couple episodes back, we talked about the questions that lead to love, and one of the questions, one of the more controversial questions, actually, was if you could have the mind or body of a 30-year-old for 50 years, which would you choose? We both chose mind. Okay. All the listeners that bothered to check in chose body. Let me see if I can pull up a couple responses here.
The ones that chose body, I would like to show them a couple examples of what that looks like, where your mind is still intact, but your body is falling to pieces.
There's one
So
response that says, if I end up like my mother and her mother with losing my mind, I still hope I still have my body to rely on. Anyway, I choose body, even without this hanging over my head. Anyway, a friend and I discussed this years ago. We both agreed it's better to lose your mind and not realize it and still be able to get around.
yeah,
Yeah,
we can give you examples of that too, right? We run into that situation too.
yeah.
So, you got any more of them? No.
Do well, the other thing that I have is,
Well, we always like
we
feedback.
ask people whether they like the lottery or the quiet, which is a story that we had talked about way back by Quiet by Carrie Davis, and actually the quiet got more votes as a better story. Perhaps it was a better written story. It was a longer story, but the lottery is one that that sticks with you for sure. It's a classic.
Hmm.
That's
Hey,
all I
well,
had.
all right. Well, what I wanted to tell you is I did a couple of things that I've never done before. I saw a group of people tent a building. You know what that is? That's when you're
You're
treating
gonna
for
gas
some
it
kind of a pest, or
for
termites
bugs.
or
Yeah,
something,
yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
testing for bugs. And this was a large building, and these guys came with these big tarps, hung them up over this building with a crane, roped them down. They're walking around on top of this sloping building in these tarps, and they of course drape all the way to the ground. It was a monumental thing to watch. And then I think, how do they even find people to do that?
Yeah.
So that was my first time to ever watch that. So I found that to be interesting. And the other thing that I did, Dave, I think you may find interesting. I happened to score a new pair of tennis shoes, uh, and I actually took an
Would you
old.
score them? You mean you
Yeah, I didn't.
you
It was a
stole them from
gift.
somebody, or
It
okay, it
was a
was
gift.
okay.
Somebody said, "Yeah, I'll buy you a pair of tennis shoes." So anyhow, I picked the ones I liked, and what I did, and I'm sure our listeners will have a comment about this. I actually threw away. I believe I should only have so many pair of shoes. So I actually took the pair of tennis shoes. It was scarred. There was some paint on them. There was a hole in them. There was still plenty of tread on them, and I threw them away
You
because one new pair in, one new pair
you
out.
you cringed as you did that, though, didn't you?
Because everybody's got 16 pair for specific purposes,
Congratulations.
right? For this
Yeah,
and that.
absolutely.
Hey, I want to. We have a special guest with us today, and I wanted to kind of lead into that.
Bring it on.
Yeah, the old Bucks uh, are readers. We read books. We enjoy movies. Dave, at our age, you've learned to write, and you write nicely. You write some short stories. You write articles. In fact, everything you write is I find interesting to read. But we like books. We like the people that wrote the books. We're fascinated by. Uh, I'm often fascinated by the how they're constructed. An example of that was one time I found a book that I thought I said, this is something Dave would find interesting if he wants to write a book. It had a lot of blank pages in it. Had a lot of pages. You remember that author? It
I
was
do.
yeah. And then you turned around with another book of the same author called The Book Thief that brought tears to my eyes. So we do like reading, and I'm fascinated by how our language is built. We've talked about the words we use in different languages and so on. So we go back a long way over that subject. We skirt over that here and there now and then. So the other day, I was doing my daily puzzle in the paper, and I have a little puzzle dictionary. And I opened that dictionary up and looked at the word, I think it was pivot. And I looked at all the words that this dictionary had that could represent that word. And I said, this must be, what an unbelievable language. We have so many words that you can interchange. How could anybody ever learn this thing? And then I said to myself, I know a guy.
Uh-huh.
I know a guy that actually knows how to teach English. And he is with us today. And I'd like to introduce to you my friend, an English teacher, Curtis Weber. Are you with us, Curtis?
I am. Thank you. Thank you, Dale.
Well, I want you to go ahead and lay down some info on yourself and tell us what you do, and we'll throw some
Welcome,
questions
Curtis,
at you.
by the way. Welcome,
Okay,
Curtis. Good to
well,
have
I'm,
you
I'm
here.
glad to be here. Well, as Dale said, my name is Curtis Weber, and I'm really unfamiliar with the age of everyone else. I'm just going to tell you, I'm 69, so I don't know if that really fits into the old bucks.
You're not quite old enough, but we'll
But,
we'll
uh,
let you
but,
slide
but
in. We'll let you
I,
slide in.
I
Yeah.
like looking forward to things. So I have some notes. I'm just going to refer to them. I grew up in Wisconsin, where I attended public schools in a small town called Plymouth, which, unbeknownst to the both of you, I'm sure, is the cheese capital of the world. So that's my background.
Who
Okay.
knew?
Look it
Yeah.
up. It's true. I also attended and graduated from the University of Wisconsin, which just this year is the top rated school of education by the US and World Reports.
Hmm.
I have a BS in education 1978 and an MS in educational leadership 1990. I taught and was an administrator, a principal, and a director of integrated student services. I taught in New Orleans, Durango, Colorado, and Madison, Wisconsin. I also developed and taught at Madison Area Technical College in the adult basic education program. Having had a life of doing that, I decided to retire with my wife in 2011, and we moved here to Sarasota. Having wanting to do something else and always taking care of my body, I worked at the YMCA and Sarasota Memorial Hospital Health Fit for 5 years. Then COVID happened.
Oh, yeah.
And COVID was a situation where the Sarasota Public Schools were looking for teachers to become off-site virtual teachers. And so in many regards, this was, we can think about COVID and in fact, it was a horrible thing, but in many ways, it recalibrated some of our decisions. So I said that would be fun. And I could sit at home and be on the computer and incidentally learn more computer skills. So I became a sub and was a virtual teacher during the COVID epidemic when the schools were closed. And then I really threw my hat in the ring and said I'd be a long-term sub. So I did kindergarten for 10 weeks.
Wow.
Really
You
drove
get
me
a medal for that, I'll bet.
yeah, it really drove me crazy, but it was fun. And then I took a position at Suncoast Technical College teaching English speakers of other languages, which is how I ended up at Suncoast. Um, and since then, I've been teaching there since 2021. I currently teach the high and advanced level Monday through Friday from 11:30 to 2:30. I only know English. when I was offered the job, I said, but I only speak English. She said, we only want you if you speak English. Okay. They're very adamant
Ah,
about that. Okay.
oh, that's interesting.
And
Yeah.
of course, I have the Wisconsin dialect, which is highly sought after. Uh, Again, to repeat, my students are expected to learn and speak English. I thoroughly enjoy my job. It provides me with a community purpose. It engages me, expands my thinking beyond my very comfortable bubble, and keeps me current on technology and educational practices. Now, I could talk a little bit about the school if that's what we would like me to do next, but I'll defer to you guys.
You can tell us a little bit about the school, sure.
Yeah, I would like to hear
And
more
then
about
we
that
can get
school
into
too.
then we can get into some questions. We can start working you over pretty good here.
Okay. Well, Suncoast Technical College is a college on Beneva Road in Proctor here in Sarasota. It's operated by the Sarasota County School District, which was totally unknown to me because, in my experience in Wisconsin, the technical schools are a separate entity. Here, they're controlled by the K 12 system. Okay, and their purpose is to generate and develop workforce and serve the community needs. In the division I work in, which is called Adult General Ed, there are two divisions: GED, General Education Development, your high school equivalency
Okay.
diploma,
Mhm.
and then the area in which I work, which is English speakers of other languages. We don't call it ESL here. We call it English speakers of other languages. Let's just own that.
That's
Okay. Let's just
okay.
own it. It's
I,
Florida. Okay.
I can accept that. Yeah, we'll go with
So
that.
so there are four locations in Sarasota County. There's a Sarasota campus on Beneva. There's a Northport branch. There's a Venice branch. And then we also offer classes outreach at places of business. We serve about 1,700 students a year. We offer 23 3-hour class sessions, days and evenings. Okay. 23 different sessions every semester. So it's quite a broad program. The day classes are either from 8 to 11 or 11:30 to 2:30, or evenings, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 6 to 9. I have had the experience of teaching students from probably 30 different countries. Okay. And I'm just going to do a little check-in because I think there may be some false assumptions as to where the students come from. So I'm just going to state countries and the numbers of students I currently serve. I have 40 students in my classroom. I have one from Brazil, one from Cameroon, one from Chile, 6 from Colombia, 5 from Cuba, 1 from Germany, 1 from Haiti, 1 from Hungary, 1 from Iran, 1 from Italy, 2 from Mexico, 2 from Peru, 1 from Poland, 1 from Romania, 1 from Spain, 1 from Turkey, 7 from Ukraine, 1 from the United States, Puerto Rico, and 5 from Venezuela. I also think it's
That's,
important.
isn't that interesting?
Yes, I think it's also important to state that I have a range of ages from 17 to 83.
Wow.
And some are cardiologists, pharmacists, gynecologists, nurses, college professors, psychiatrists, psychologists, accountants, Olympic coaches, barbers,
Wow.
dance instructors, massage therapists, mechanics, musicians, truck drivers, cargo ship captains. So it falls the whole spectrum, and often it's expansive for me to think of all of the different jobs that they have had and what they're currently doing today. So, in many ways, it offers me a window into a much more complex world than I've had. So, I think that's what I'd like to say. I could talk a little bit about registration or the different levels or our curriculum, but maybe that'll come out in the questions.
Yeah, that'll probably come out of the question. So, I mean, certainly with that mixture, that must make for interesting class discussions. Well, let me ask you this: how much English do they typically know coming in? Are they
Well,
basically struggling, or they've already had some English, or?
Dave, there are 6 levels of instruction. When they register, it's $55. They agree to take a test, a placement test, which then they're placed in a particular class based on their level. Given the numbers of students we have, our classes are often no more than 2 levels, sometimes just 1 level, depending on the number of students in that placement. I've had some students in my class that have started in the beginning level, which means not knowing the alphabet, just a year ago. And after 70 hours, they must be retested. And then they move up from level to level. So everyone in my class is a level 5 and 6, which is approximately grade level 5 and 6 if you were to think in the terms of public education.
Yeah, that
so
clarifies it.
they and then they're tested in areas of reading and listening. And listening is probably the most difficult area for them. But their reading skills, they can read the local paper. It's a little struggle sometimes to read the New York Times, but I push them because I think it's important.
All other things being equal, do people from any particular area of the world seem to pick up the English faster, or people that have some commonality with English, or is it?
Well, I would say that, of course, in some of the countries, the students themselves had some English instruction in school, okay, in their K-12 education,
Mhm.
whereas in other countries they have not. I think I would say that folks with an undergraduate or advanced degree in college pick up the language quicker because there's a certain amount of our language, English, that finds its way into that level of instruction, regardless of your primary language. That would be my assumption. I think more so than what your question leads to is, what are their study skills like? How committed are they to taking the 15 hours of instruction I give them every week and realizing that it goes beyond that if they're really going to want to learn English. Okay. They have to use some of the computer programs that we offer to them free and use their phones or their iPads, whatever platform they have, to practice listening to the words. So that would be my sense as to why some students progress faster. I think I would be remiss, though, in not saying that my students have a lot of challenges. Some of them have 2 or 3 jobs and children. I would say half of my students have children in the K-12 system. And so they're balancing multiple hats, and English is one of them.
So what are the biggest challenges that you face as you try to teach the class? Not try, you do teach it. And what are some of the challenges that the students face, particularly early on?
I've made the decision that I'm not much for workbooks and canned curriculum, okay, particularly at this level. And given the breadth of the experiences my students have, I ask them and I interview them. What are their skills? What can they teach us? Okay. And that is a step in the right direction in getting their input into their own instruction. I remind them that in essence, we're all teachers in that classroom. And I probably have 4 or 5 teachers in the classroom of other languages. So it starts with the belief that they have something to offer and that my expectation is that they're using English to provide that. They've been doctors, they can talk in Spanish. Well, you know, if you want to be a doctor in Sarasota, you got to use English. So this gives them an opportunity to improve their English in a format that is understood by me from Wisconsin that leads to a job for them. So they have a lot of vested interest in using English to explain skills that they already have. Okay.
Mhm.
So they each do presentations several times during the year, which means they go on the internet, they produce a document, they have more PowerPoint skills and computer skills than I do, and they produce classroom discussions that they have to then stand in front of the class and provide. And some of those topics have been as varied as gender-based violence, taxes, USA 2024, yoga, crew, tango, crochet, leadership and energy and environmental design. I have 2 architects in the class. Personal development, fine arts, self-compassion, and the biopsychosocial approach to understanding health. That came from the cardiologist. So my challenge is to have them practice English, have them meet with me to review what they're going to say beforehand, get the technology to work so that they can be the teacher for their colleagues. Then it's also about getting their colleagues to sit and be quiet and listen and not ask questions as soon as they have one, to save their question. But these aren't issues that are separate only to ESL people. We all tend to want to ask questions. The biggest challenges for me.
My question is, what do the students say to you as the most difficult thing about English is?
Using it.
When they say to you, the
just
difficult
actually
thing
using it, getting it out of their head and putting it out there. I have a lot of communication with them where they're just telling me, I think I know what I'm going to say until I have to open my mouth. Okay. And that's why I build what I teach around a skill they already have. Okay.
Mhm.
And then also the other thing I teach around is we're all new to Florida. So we've spent this year learning about the plants and animals of Florida. Again, I give them each an assignment and they have to do the research. And then we do tours of the University of Florida IFS setting on Twin Lakes Park. And we meet with the extension teachers and we do a tour of the garden. We've also gone to a water treatment facility because they're always interested in whether they can drink the water. So we went to a water treatment.
As am I.
Yeah, we went to a water treatment facility and they have to come up with questions. We've gone to the Sarasota Art Museum and had a docent-led tour, and they have to have questions to ask the docent. Several of my students have grandparents from Ukraine who are quite well-known artists, so then they talk about that. So to answer your question, Dale, I think what I have to do is establish, and I'm quite good at this, a classroom where diverse opinions are honored, that I remind everybody that we're adults, that we don't have to agree, but that we have to listen to each other's with respect.
No, I was going to say, I always wonder about the peculiarities of English where the words sound the same or spelled slightly different. Patience and patience and tear and right and
Well,
Like-
all those kind of fluky
like-
things that can
Yeah.
drive me crazy. I still
Like
can't
weight,
spell the
like weight. By the way, could you weigh that weight? I mean,
right. I mean, it's constant. It's constant. You know, I'm a very informal person and we use humor. And what's important in the English language, as is my understanding of other languages, is context. And our students don't understand the context. They have to understand enough of the words in the sentence in order to then determine, well, are we meaning T-O or T-O-O or
Yeah.
T-W-O? It,
A lot of
it
Americans still
sounds
don't
the
get that
same.
right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I have a lot of problems with. I mean, I'll be the first to tell them that, I don't know. Let's look into that a little bit. You could say it, but now let's talk about the meaning. Some of the challenges, and I found it, first of all, is my time. Okay, that's probably the biggest challenge. And what I have to say about that is I really love my job, but I'm a part time, non board approved contractual teacher. I only get paid for instructional time with my students, plus 1 hour a month for a meeting.
Okay.
So I probably spend, so I teach for 15 hours a week. I probably spend 7 to 10 hours of my own time developing the curriculum, searching the internet, providing materials for my students. That's a challenge. That's a challenge for me sometimes, but it's something I love to do.
Well, it tells me you're doing this because you love it, because you
That's
enjoy
right.
it, you
That's
get
right.
satisfaction out of helping these folks.
As a
And
K-12 public school teacher, though, we did in Wisconsin, we did get planning time. And I teach with 4 full-time teachers, and I think there are 15 part-time teachers, if you can get a drift as to what's happening. And the full-time teachers get planning time.
yeah.
So that's kind of a challenge I just have to put on the show.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is, and this one really hits home, our federal, state, and government's volatile, chaotic, caustic, unjust, and bullying and racism regarding migrants and refugees. Realize I don't ask my students their status. I really don't want to know. What that really does is it kind of shatters the community of the classroom. Okay. And so I'm constantly having to remind them that we're all adults. This is a safe place until ICE comes knocking on the door. And that those top-down influences that we might feel are totally different for my students. I have some students from Cuba who have had to reestablish their residency status 3 times since the new administration has come into power. And just imagine what that causes to themselves and their children who are in the public schools. So that's a really big struggle to preserve the wonderfulness of the United States thought. I also think it's deplorable given that we can easily forget that in many ways we're a nation of immigrants, apart from our native First Nation and enslaved people. And so, do we talk about politics? Not to the extent that we're advancing one ideology over another, but we talk about our history. And that's also very important. My students are coming for English language, but also to understand this complex thing we call the United States of America, because many of them come from countries where there isn't this diversity and they don't feel comfortable talking about that. So those are my challenges, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. You had mentioned having your students make presentations. I'm reminded of a story by David Sedaris.
David
Yes.
Sedaris, yes, we've listened to him for years because
Yeah.
we taught in New Orleans, and I think he might come from New Orleans. I'm not sure, but go ahead, please.
But anyway, he lived in France for a number of years, and he joined or he enrolled in a learn to speak French class, and it was like yours. It was students from all backgrounds, all countries, and as one of their exercises, they had to in French explain one of the cultural events of the of the country they came from. And he chose to describe Easter, and he's talking about the Easter bunny coming and eggs, Easter bunny with eggs. And he said all the students are going like, wait a minute, a rabbit laying eggs. It's a little bit of a cultural thing there where it just kind of gets lost in the sauce. So that you must have had some humorous moments like that in your
Oh,
class as well.
we constantly have that. One of our most recent excursions was the Sarasota County School District owns a boat that's called the Carefree Learner Boat. It was built 50 years ago by Sarasota high school students, and it's docked at Marina Jack's Marina, and Marina Jack's gives the school district a slip. Again, these are all things I'm learning. I mean, this isn't my understanding of the real world. And so we went out on this boat to do a science exploration of the ecosystem of Sarasota Bay.
Mhm.
For some of my students, exploring science is not a new idea. I probably haven't explored science since I was in middle school or taught it, years ago. So we go out on this boat, which is a 2-hour excursion on Sarasota.
2-hour cruise.
Yes, and of course they hadn't heard of Gilligan's Isle, so of course
Yeah.
I had to play a little Gilligan's Isle for them.
Okay.
And anyway, I have a statement I'd like to read by one of my students relative to her experience. On this boat, we have the county has permission to drag a net and bring up from the bay seagrass and creatures that one finds in there. And then there's aquarium tanks, and the students look at it and discuss them. And this is a great opportunity to learn English, quite frankly. We spent a couple days reviewing animals in the bay in classroom first. But here's one of the memories that one of my students had. I'm not going to share her name, and I'll just read it. I really liked this boat trip. I was surprised how many sea creatures we found in the seagrass from the bottom. But I was worried all the time. Maybe the fish feel bad when we observe them for too long. I also thought that maybe we might hurt them with our hands. I was most worried about the very small fish. Maybe we didn't see them, and they may have stayed too long on the table out of the water. I understand that I am a very sensitive person. I was just thinking, what if a fish dies? But the thing I remember most is the Robinson Crusoe man. He showed me how much freedom people have in the United States of America. He showed how different people are here and how this country lets people choose their way and be themselves. That refers to, we went out to one of the islands in the bay, which the county owns. It's basically, they dredged the bay so it would be deeper. And then they formed these islands, which are mangrove islands. And we turned into this place to pull the boat in, and there is a sailboat with a man and his Cocker Spaniel docked to the island. And he spends the day, he's been living on the boat for a year. Okay, on the land. And then later on that very same day, I learned one of my students said they saw him in a coffee shop downtown. So, I mean, this is an example of the freshness that I get from these experiences. I wouldn't be out on this boat if I wasn't teaching this class. So, in many ways, to be honest, it's about me.
It must be fascinating to be able to see the world from their eyes, from their viewpoint, particularly when they're from another world.
This is a 33-year-old woman who has 3 children. Her husband works at Walmart. They live in a double-wide trailer. She's wonderful. He takes classes. She had the experience of having to evacuate during the last hurricane and drive for 24, 25 hours because her husband wasn't here, up through the middle of the country to try and get away. It's amazing that the spirit that exists in people who by choice have elected to come to this country. It's really a great thing.
That has to be very gratifying. to be a part of that.
Another story I'll just tell. It's a quicker one.
All right.
We're completing applications for my students because we're going to go to a tour at the Gulf Gate Library next week. And so we study what a library is and what it can offer. And of course, some of my students who are 17 have never been to a library. Why would you go to a library? It's all on your phone.
So
We get to talk about the challenges libraries are having with individuals stealing books or trying to ban books that they don't believe should be in the library. But the end of the day, they can all get a library card because they have a Sarasota School District ID. So, this is how naive I can be. It says clearly print on the application. So we talk about why that's important because the person who's data entering needs to read it. And,
Okay.
I feel bad about this, but it turns out that someone turned it in and I said, this is in cursive and it's very neat. And I said, it says here we need to print it. Now that's for a reason. I was really kind of adamant.
Uh-huh.
And then the wonderful young man said, well, Mr. Weber, teacher, I never learned how to print because in Cuba, we're not taught in school how to print. Again, it bursted my little bubble about what I thought was universal knowledge. And so I did a little research. And in fact, in Cuba, the public schools does not teach printing. It goes right to cursive. So again, that's another little story that we forget. We forget. And his handwriting was very legible. But I was making a big deal out of that and had to be in print. So
interesting. Yeah.
Hey, Curtis, I would tell our listeners that the school you're talking to is very prominent in a prominent location. It's a beautiful school. It's big. It's well known for its academic, prowess and the people they turn out in a lot of technical fields.
Correct.
And clearly, I can see you enjoy your work. And that's, if you're going to retire and do anything, that's the best way to do it. So I want to thank you very much for joining us. We might have to have you back again to fill in some more details, but I'm going to say thank you so much for joining us today. And Old Buck Dave, what do you think?
I think it's been fun listening to Curtis tonight, and I would encourage our listeners to send in any questions or comments they may have for Curtis. We can get answers to those questions, and certainly love to share the comments. Yeah, it's you're doing a good thing. People take speaking the language for granted, and until you don't, and until you realize what how essential that is.
And how essential it is for my students to network and find resources, which often require knowing English. I wouldn't be as successful as I am today if I didn't know how to network with other people. The last thing I'd like to say is people should go Sarasota School, Suncoast Technical College. Check out the website and consider enrolling. We offer summer school.
All right, we'll put a link to that in our show notes that come at the bottom of the podcast. So thank you very much, Curtis, for being with us today, and look forward to hearing some more from you in the future. And in the meantime, I will turn it over to Old Buck Dale. He's in charge tonight.
Now this could go on for quite a while. So again, thank you, Curtis, and I want to thank all our listeners. Any comments you have or thoughts about what was said here, please drop us a line at buckstwoold@gmail.com, and we'll try to answer those. Otherwise, this is Old Buck Dell saying thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
And this is Old Buck Dave right behind you saying the same thing. Good to be with everybody again. We'll be back again soon. Bye-bye.